So when you got on all of the dating apps, what did you see that other women couldn't?
Well, initially, I think I saw what all women were seeing and are seeing, which is a lot of, I mean, definitely toxicity and aggression and abuse and all of these things, but also just a lot of confusion, like a lot of really bizarre communications, which that was almost more troubling to me. Like you kind of understand how to react to someone who's being actively toxic or aggressive or insulting or frightening or whatever it is. But I kept ending up in these conversations that I was like, if I entered some kind of bizarro universe, and it was like the content of the conversations was bananas, the pacing of the conversations was insane. Like I'd match with these guys that, it seemed like they were like this with their phone, like all the time, just waiting to text, with no break in between, and what I call the bored toddler rhetorical pattern in Burn the Haystack. And then also men who like every 3 days would be like, hey, nothing else, or how are you? And then like 4 days later, try to follow up that conversation.
I'm Melissa Monti, and you're listening to Mind Love.
So that's what I encountered initially. And I went into it blind, having heard all the complaints about the fish pics and the bathroom mirror selfies and the shirtless pics, but I was unprepared for how bad it would be beyond those things.
Why do you think your PhD helped you to see some of these things that other people just accept as maybe they're chatting with a douchebag?
Yeah. Well, they are chatting with douchebags, to be clear. I just had some tools to sort of give language to why they are douchebags, which is a large part of the battle. I think that, Burn the Haystack is about moving from intuition to understanding. We all have a whole lot of rhetorical knowledge that like governs and guides our daily lives and our interactions with people. But we second guess ourselves, right? So somebody says something to us and we're like, I didn't really like that, but I'm not sure why. But there's all these social scripts, especially being leveraged at women constantly, that say, oh, you're taking yourself too seriously, or you're overthinking this, or don't read so much into it. Just, like be chill, be fun. And so we kind of, we're always being gaslit. So we start gaslighting ourselves. And Burned Haystack is about like kind of taking a pause, analyzing all that communication to realize what's going on beneath the surface. And I'm talking about words and images, talking about material rhetoric, like the Confederate flag behind him, things like that. And to really figure out what's going on beneath the surface so that you can sort of account for your own reaction and say, oh, yeah, that's actually completely valid, and just be done with that person. And that's what's at the root of burning the haystack.
Unfortunately, I find it's so difficult for women to just be done with that person, no matter how many red flags. It's like, it's too ingrained. It started too early. I look back at my own patterns, and most of my audience already knows my crazy story. Ironically, I recently did an episode about stop diagnosing other people because we're like overusing the words toxic and red flags and whatever.
Yeah.
But I really was with a sociopath. A sociopath. I ended up in jail because of him. He spent 11 years in jail. I think mine can take those words, but it's like we've been giving language and we're like, oh my gosh, now we can talk about it. But some people use that to walk away. I feel like most people just use it to be like the person that's going to love them in a way they've never been loved before.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The woman who's special enough to fix it all. Yeah. Which is frequently what they're looking for, right? I'm looking for that one special woman who can like make it all right, which is, that's toxic. That's a toxic statement. Yeah. That's what we're combating in Burn the Haystack. And there's a real power in numbers, like I might have that nagging feeling that like there's something not right here, but you go into a Facebook group with over 250,000 women who are saying the same thing. And suddenly that has more power than this one problematic guy on Hinge.
Oh, yes. You talk about rhetorical patterning, the idea that toxic men reuse the same scripts and the same structures, almost word for word.
Yeah.
How did you realize that this wasn't random, but it was actually a pattern?
So the first rhetorical pattern I identified is called test and apologize. I just noticed I was running into it a lot. And a lot of the like screenshots women were submitting to my Facebook group for analysis seemed to fall into this pattern where men will throw and it always happens like pretty much immediately. Like first or second message is something sexual. And then before the woman even responds, they message again and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm not normally like this. You're just so beautiful and I lost my head." Or like something to that effect. And what that does is allow them to, test the waters and see like what is she going to be open to, but also builds in plausible deniability that like, whoa, that was a mistake. And it wasn't. I always say the test is real. The apology is not. And when I put that on Instagram, I did like a little explainer of that reel with some examples. And I didn't have much of an Instagram following at that point, and it just started catching fire. And then I started paying more attention to the patterns I'd been noticing. Disciplinary directive male profile. Are you my mother? Six flags or red flags. We've got a lot of them. My book goes over the 33 most frequently seen. And you might think, like if anybody who's listening and is new to Burn the Haystack might think, I don't know if I can memorize 33 rhetorical patterns. You don't have to. You've seen them all, I promise. And once you start like hearing the rhetorical explanation and seeing the examples, you just like they light up like neon and you won't waste your time on them anymore. Building my AI girlfriend, that's another rhetorical pattern. And the more we started talking about this in terms of patterning, number one, the more it brought women together because we all knew exactly what we were talking about. It was kind of like this shortcut to not only common understanding, but common support for each other, like amongst women, and also became a shortcut to navigating the apps because you didn't have to sit there and think like, I don't know, should I talk to this guy anymore? Because we're saying, no, that's conditional decency pattern. That's in the top 5 most toxic. You need to block him and move on.
Okay.
It's just a really good tool.
Yeah. And I'm so intrigued. It's like better than Love is Blind. Tell me about more of these patterns because that's so fascinating.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Did you hear one that caught your fancy?
You said something about a toddler.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And what? And I know it's funny. I'm so glad I found my husband 12 years ago. I didn't really spend a lot of time on dating apps. And so, but I've had that thought like, man, did I miss something? And the more I hear, no, I did not. So.
No, you count your blessings on that one. I mean, dating apps aren't a good way to meet people. Like nobody thinks they are. I don't think they are, but they're the reality of what we have right now. And I don't think they're going away anytime soon. I think they need to change. They're going to evolve and, change some functionality, but like, I think they're here to stay as a mode of meeting people. Board Toddler is the guys who require like immediate responses. They message you at 11 o'clock in the morning and you don't respond by 11:05 because you have a job and a life. And then they're either angry or they're whining or they're expressing their insecurity, which is just another form of manipulation. And it's literally like having a toddler like tug on your sleeve all day, that if you're trying to do something else, they need your attention and they need it very badly.
One thing that you wrote about that just really hit home, because I was literally just saying this to somebody, not in the same context, but it'll make sense. You described something called the block to burn, and it's not as rejection, but as a way to kind of beat the algorithm.
Yeah.
But most women feel guilty blocking someone who hasn't done anything obviously wrong. And I was just saying this in regards to other relationships. I can look at it as through the lens of my most toxic relationship. He kept gaslighting me about the cheating that I knew he was doing. But it's like, because I didn't have the hard proof, I couldn't get out because of the gaslighting, which now would be totally different.
Right,
I have self-esteem. I'm not 22 anymore, but it's common. And even in some of our closer relationships, I was having difficulty with someone in my family. And I was like, it's not bad enough. Like, it's bad enough that every conversation sends me into a turmoil, but it's not bad enough to cut off. I'm like, where's that line? And so where do you think this guilt comes from in women?
Well, I mean, I think as you just said, like women are socialized to be kind and forgiving and see the best in everyone and seeing potential. I mean, humans are wired for parenting and to live in communal societies and family structures, and being willing to give someone multiple chances and see their potential is a necessary component of being an effective human being if you want to live in community. Here's the shift though. If you're on a dating app, you are by definition talking to strangers. Like you don't owe these people anything. You have no relationship with them at all. Most of us don't hesitate to hang up on a telemarketer anymore, right? And we might feel the need to say, "I'm not interested, thank you," and then we hang up or just hang up. It shouldn't be any different. I mean, Burn Haystack is for the very early stages of making connections. It's before feelings enter. And every single app has a mechanism for blocking someone without hurting them and without reporting them. They make it look tricky so that until you understand the process, I can't remember which one it is. It might be Hinge. It sort of like intentionally makes it look like you're going to have to report them, but you don't. It ends up being like two different processes where block is one option and report is another. And this is the problem. It's very manipulative on the part of the dating apps. They don't want you to block people because that messes with their algorithms, but that's exactly what we're doing intentionally, because otherwise they recycle people to you. And it's a waste of women's time.
And it makes you wonder how sophisticated these algorithms are. What I'd like to see is when you block someone, you stop seeing other people like them. But I somehow doubt that they're ever tweaking the algorithm for our benefit versus the benefit of growth of the platform.
Right. Like the algorithms don't work. Nobody thinks they do, including the dating apps. I mean, they work for them. Algorithms don't work in people's favor, which is why you have to kind of take matters into your own hands.
It reminds me of the love reality shows where people are always on like Reddit talking about how do they find these people? And it's like, what do you mean? They're not looking for marriage material. They're looking for good TV.
Yes, exactly. I mean, if you like Tinder's definition of success, like that they actually use is lots of people having lots of conversations. Okay, that's good for Tinder. That's not good for people who are trying to find a partner.
Yeah, women are like, I'm trying to have a baby by 2027.
Right, exactly.
I don't want these conversations. Wait, let's go over a couple more that I did note down because I thought they were funny. And I think it's just easy to pull. When you see it, like you said, you can't unsee it. And so I know there's so many women out there having conversations with people and they're just like, why is this so frustrating? Tell us about Are You My Mother?
Yeah, so there's a lot of that on the dating apps, and sometimes it's really blatant. Like sometimes men are, cracking jokes about, I've been out there for a while, really looking for somebody to cook and clean. More frequently than that, they say something like, just looking for that special woman to help me be my best self. Okay, that's a mother job. That's not an equal grown adult's job. The other way I see it happen a lot is these guys tend to praise their own mothers, and I think they see that as virtue signaling, like I'm a guy who respects women, but it or appreciates women, but it frequently sounds like this. My biggest hero is my mom. She lived her whole life for other people, never wanting anything for herself, just wanting her family to be happy. And I think many of them genuinely mean that in a good way, but what they're telling you is that's their expectation for you, which is inappropriate in a romantic relationship in 2026 and unhealthy.
I've always gotten a little cringe by I shouldn't say always. I was going to say cringe by men who talk about their moms too early.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think back with my husband. He has a great relationship with his mom. I have a great relationship with his mom. I'm sure she came up. It just never felt creepy. So I know exactly what you mean with the weight of like, all right, so are you looking for a mother? Right. Where's that line though? Because I will say my favorite thing about my relationship is that we are both on growth paths. And so we don't stall, because in my past relationships, I was always the one forging that. And then I'd get with them and they'd act interested at first and then they'd make fun of it a little bit. And then I would step back. And so it always stalled my own growth. So I kind of am looking for someone who pushes me in their own ways, brings something to the table. But what is a way that may be said that wouldn't be a red flag?
Yeah. So but what you're talking about, what you're describing is a mutuality, right? Like two people with mutual goals, maybe with some joint goals who are both working together. I think the red flag structure is when it appears that he sees himself as on a growth path with the woman in the anchor role.
Yeah.
That's
it's like,
the
you write
thing.
my to-do list for me. Have my breakfast ready so that I can go to the gym.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And with the trad wife movement, that's becoming frighteningly popular, especially with younger people, which is baffling to me.
I see that. It's like we always have this pendulum.
Yeah.
And there are things I appreciate about the trad wife movement. I am a holistic person. I really value where my food is sourced from.
Yes, right.
I do think there needs to be a little bit more focus on the family. And also, what the F is up with all the prairie dresses, and stop acting like you don't have a job when you're probably the breadwinner with your Instagram account right now. And I know you look like you're all hands-on, but I know how long it takes to edit a reel.
Yeah, exactly. And people who don't have any experience with social media wouldn't necessarily see through that. But I think the same thing. I'm like, she's laughing all the way to the bank. And I definitely think there's a lot of women who are exploiting the trad wife movement just because it's lucrative. But I do think, there's at least some percentage of the population that's living it out in ways that I see as like sort of overtly misogynistic.
I accidentally came across someone calling out a trad wife that shows up on Instagram like Anne of Green Gables, but apparently she also has an OnlyFans account. And she's like one of the top trad wives with millions of followers. And I'm like, genius, girl, but
yeah, I know,
mixed messages.
Yeah, I know. I have like an internal battle with myself because on the one hand, I'm like, she's working that system. It's impressive. But then on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, but who's she pulling along with her that's not as savvy and is taking this seriously and really is signing her paychecks over to her husband,
Right. It's one thing if you're going to show up and be the satire, make it obvious.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I love accounts like that. But when you are, there's just so many young people that are so impressionable, and not even just young people. I think we are all so impressionable. We're sitting there scrolling and we're absorbing all of these messages. And so for me, even when I'm looking at building my own business, I have a very interesting relationship with Instagram because I technically should, and sometimes I do, but I don't like the way it feels. I'm on there and when I'm doing well, when my Instagram account is taking off, I'm thinking about my life in terms of reels. And the moment that happens, I'm like, I need out of this. I'm not on social media for months again because I don't want, it's like going to the concert and watching the artist through your phone lens instead of being there in the present moment, just on all of these different levels. And when you're thinking about our dating profiles too, it's a similar thing. How much of our self-image right now is what we are curating in a profile, and we forget even how to find ourselves because of that curation process.
Right. Yeah. I feel that too. And I appreciate everything you just said. I think that what I see in my students is actually a growing awareness of how unhealthy that is for the individual, but also for society, right? Like without diagnosing people as narcissists, which I agree is happening too much. Like we are just sort of generically speaking, becoming a narcissistic people, partly because of this effect that you're describing. Yeah, I don't know how to I don't know where the sweet spot is between like sharing information that people find healthy and like, yeah, turning yourself into a social media robot. Yeah.
I feel like I found that balance. It's just not meant for growth. Like I'm probably not going to have 1 million followers, which I would rather choose life than
yeah. And I don't think 1 million followers means that much anymore because people buy followers, you know?
True.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do one more that I'm a very busy man.
This one is so common, and it frequently sounds sort of okay because his profile will say, you know, I'm a single dad, I have a demanding career and a challenging schedule, but I'll make time for the right woman. Okay, so by saying that, which first of all, I think most women I know are busier than most men I know. Like that's just, I feel like that's definitively true. So, but by claiming that position, he's now sort of assumed this structure where his time is more valuable. And he's talking to women he hasn't met yet, right? There's totally possible they could be way busier and way more important, but he's assuming that his time is more important and more valuable. That's a problem. So, because he's established a hierarchy with himself at the top. But he's also basically sort of tacitly saying, if you prove yourself to be this worthy woman, then I'll make time for you. And that's not an okay relationship structure. That's not equitable.
I have just heard that in conversation. I feel like that's just a man thing. So it's like, I've been growing a baby 24/7 for the last 8.5 months. My time is more valuable than yours, hands down. Right. I don't care what you're plowing over there.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting though, because I remember over a decade ago learning the concept of grooming. And of course it was a different topic. And it was a topic that I didn't. The first time I actually understood that sex trafficking happens in the United States. And I remember just being baffled by this. It took a while to open my mind to it. And then I was the one sounding like the conspiracy theorist before the Epstein files came out and vindicated all of us that went down all the rabbit holes way earlier. But anyways, the hardest part to get over in the beginning, though, was this concept of grooming and how this is what they do. And I'm like, so what? Is there some secret library where people find out this stuff? I did end up finding out there are secret forums for this, but I can see that now. And I guess if you're one of those people, you're going to find one of those forums. But what about all of these men that seem to have this really consistent way of reeling women in? How does that come about? Is it just the man personality, or how are they so consistent?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we live in a patriarchal society. So as much as women have been told to, you know, to be kind and generous and submissive and give everybody the benefit of the doubt, men have, and not, I'm not doing the hashtag all men thing. I don't think that's valid anymore. But many men have been socialized to believe that they are entitled to women's time, attention, bodies, money, whatever it is. And I don't think they're, I mean, there are definitely men who are intentionally grooming, right? They're members of these, what we call PUA, pickup artist communities, these online forums, but not most of them. Like that's actually the minority. I think a lot of these men are just, you know, they've grown up in a society that's told them they're really important and in demand. And that comes out in their language, but it's also going to come out in their actions and their interactions. And that's not good for women.
I actually read the book, The Pickup Artist, back in the day.
Oh.
When was that? Like 2010, maybe?
Wait, are you talking about Neil Strauss's The Game or a different one?
Oh, I guess I don't remember. I do know one of my closest college friends that was always like, he was the guy where we're all getting bottles of Pop-Off in these plastic bottles, and he'd go to to Costco and come back with $100 steel garbage can and a bottle of Grey Goose. And we're like, I'm just glad you're down the hall from us.
Yeah.
But he was so fun to live next to because he just had more money than we did during this time and in the dorms. And so like one time he's like, I'm going to get into acting, and he soundproofed his room and would just practice acting skits. But he signed up for whoever that most famous pickup artist was. He had a whole coaching program that was thousands of dollars. And at the time, my friend was a very shy guy. And he was telling me about it. I was like, I got to read this book. And I was like, this book is interesting. I bet I can see why these things work because it's psychological manipulation. But then I couldn't unsee it. And there were a lot of men that read that book. And I'd be at the bar and I would call them out and I'd say, I know where you got that line. I know you're trying to be mean to me so that you can get to her or whatever it is.
Yes,
you're hitting on the less hot friend so you can get to the hot friend. Like, I know your tricks.
Yeah, I think it probably was that same book. I mean, the era like that would have been right about when he wrote that. I think he's since written another book that
apologizes for everything he did to the world. No,
kinda.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
I gotta read it.
If we're talking about the same one, the original game was called The Game, and the recent book is called The Truth.
Oh, I'm gonna at least chat GPT the summary for that.
The writing is fantastic.
Really?
Neil Strauss I've read them both. It's a difficult position for me because I love Neil Strauss's writing. Like he was a top-notch journalist. If we're talking about the same person, he started out with this group by embedding himself as an investigative journalist and then got sucked into this underground world of pickup artists. And that's how then he rose to the top of their ranks and got really, really good at it. And that's what the game is about. And then over a series of years and really disastrous life decisions that hurt him and a lot of other people, he turned back around and wrote The Truth. And I mean, I guess that's all I'll say. The writing is killer.
Okay. Well, now I'm intrigued and I know what I'm doing after this interview.
Yeah.
Well, you also talk about figured worlds, which are these kind of invisible scripts that dictate how a situation is supposed to go.
Yeah.
And that dating apps have their own kind of little figured worlds. Amazon Prime for humans, DoorDash for hookups.
Yeah.
And those all sound like great marketing slogans created by men. But what happens to a woman's self-worth when she's kind of operating inside of that figured world without knowing it?
Yeah. I mean, let's use the DoorDash example to sort of answer that question, because the apps do want to look very much like, you grab this thing and you order up what you want and it shows up at your door, right? So most people who, at least in college, and that's sort of my crowd since I teach university students, like they're not ordering organic brown rice and broccoli on DoorDash, right? They're ordering Taco Bell. And how do you feel about yourself after, gorging yourself on Taco Bell that showed up via DoorDash? Not great. You got it fast, right? It delivered. It did what you thought it was going to do, but you kind of feel like shit. And you still will the next day, maybe for a couple of days after that. And we have to sort of mentally work to combat this notion of immediacy, because that's not how long-term relationships develop. So being able to give names to some of these problematic figured worlds, like, we're going to filter on Amazon Prime for the exact, whatever headphones we want. That shouldn't be transferable to human beings. But because of how the apps are designed, and this is intentional, it does happen. And it happens subconsciously, which is where it's most insidious. Like, it's the things that we don't interrogate that really screw us over in the end. So what Burn the Haystack does, what applied rhetoric does in general, is teach you to decode all of that, see what really lies beneath it, so that you don't fall victim to it, because it is destroying women's self-esteem.
Yeah, because then if I don't show up in 30 minutes, am I free?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You never know.
Right.
And then I can't help but see all the things like a lot of people don't realize how Amazon steals profits from other people they're able to see all of the best selling things. And so if there's a best selling t-shirt made by an independent company, they just remake it and drop the price. What's going to happen in the AI world? Like, well, Melissa has been really hot in San Diego lately. Let's just send over a bot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's terrifying.
I know. It is terrifying. Yeah.
You also argue that women should present themselves exactly as they are and not try to make themselves more widely appealing in these ways.
Yeah.
But it goes against a lot of the dating app tips out there. So why do you think that the mainstream advice has it backwards?
Well, first of all, I don't think you should make yourself appeal less or make yourself appear less appealing than you are. That's not what I'm saying. I'm more saying, like, don't pretend to be something you're not. Like, I think women get the message that we should put out this vibe that, like, I'm chill and down for anything. I'm a lot of fun. If that's not true, if that's not who you are, then you're just wasting everyone's time. I mean, your own time for sure, but also anyone you might meet, and you're probably going to end up having bad experiences. So that's really a straight up efficiency thing. Like, if your Burnt Haystack is designed for people who want long-term monogamous partnerships. For somebody who just wants to hook up or have fun or meet a lot of people, like that's fine. I'm not here to judge that at all. But like, don't use my method for that because you won't be happy. Burnt Haystack is specifically designed to streamline the process and do away with all that wasted time. So that's why in Burnt Haystack methodology, it just wouldn't make sense to present yourself as anything other than you are because it ends up being a time waster.
Yeah, and it's depleting. You realize you're faking your whole personality. Yeah. Right. It's interesting, though, looking back at my life, I realized how often I did that, and I couldn't see it while it was happening. And part of me wonders, like, I know maybe we're a little more evolved than when I was 20, but I wonder if I could have known myself back then, or if I needed all the trial and error of trying on different faces for a while to figure out what fit. And so since you talk to a lot of college age students, what's that process like for them? I know I thought I knew myself and I did not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that what you just said is definitely true for me too. Young people today are being raised in a much different world, and there are definitely some negatives to that for sure. I mean, we know there's a lot of negatives to social media use. The positives, though, is that they're being raised in the discourses of consent, of women supporting other women, of seeing through manipulation. I see that as a good thing. I still think, nobody gets off without any scars, right? Like that's part of growing up. Like we've all made bad decisions and have had bad experiences, and we learn from that and protect ourselves from it in the future. That said, I think there's some things we can protect people from it would be a good idea to do that. Like how, like I think we can help young people keep their psyches intact without robbing them of some of the, necessary frustrations and challenges that life entails. I don't think that sleeping with a guy who's going to humiliate and choke you is a necessary life experience to someday ending up in a healthy marriage. I just don't.
I agree completely. And it's one of those things that goes back to the pendulum we were talking about. It's like, first, it's this sort of purity culture. And then we swung over and it's like women can do what men can do. And it left a lot of us feeling like shit, honestly, feeling used. And so then we've come back and it's like, okay, maybe this isn't right. But then all of a sudden it swings to the other side and you're a trad wife, like saving yourself for marriage. And I'm like, I mean, you might want to try it out before or something. But even things like, and so we are living in a different world, but a lot of people see it as progress. And I think there is quite a bit of progress there. But I can't help but wonder, I was the last generation. Like Facebook was introduced when I was in college. It was kind of the perfect time. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't get a lot of messages about who I was or who I should be growing up, which also meant more flailing but at least it meant less programming. And I think that's kind of what we're getting now. So many people are like, well, no, I don't want kids. I want this. And it's like, do you? I thought I didn't want kids for a long time. And it's a valid thing. I'm not saying like having kids is really freaking hard. Yeah. But I really thought I didn't want kids. And I thought that was coming from me. And then something changed. And if I would have been too stuck in that, I wouldn't have seen that something changed. I also really don't know where that came from. Was it the Instagram, like, wine is better than babies messages, like, have your career? I started to do everything. And I was like, okay, now I've started a business. I've traveled all these places. Nothing's really fulfilling. Let me try something else. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting how there are more messages now that we can't get away from, and more kind of cult mentality around things. And I wonder how many people know that their opinions are actually theirs, or their desires about their life are actually theirs.
No, I think that's a really good question for everyone to sort of ask themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get to that answer now, but if you're at home, meditate on it for a while.
Right. Yeah. Meditate on that. So, I mean, seriously, that's an excellent question.
There's a line in your book that really got me. You said that most women assume something is wrong with them when they can't get good conversations on the apps. And this got me because going back to my poor relationships, it's so weird to say out loud because this is not how I saw it at the time. But when I was cheated on, my first thought was, okay, so what do they have that I don't, that I now need to cultivate? Like, oh, I must get blonde. Oh, I'm going to get this pierced. Oh, I'm going to have to start doing this. And it's sad. I hope it was because I was 21, 22, but in this case with the dating apps, it's like, you realize, okay, I talk to people all day and this doesn't happen. So it's kind of a misattribution. Why do you think that happens within the apps and maybe not in the workplace?
Well, I think it happens in the workplace too. The dating apps are it's a place that facilitates the quest for love. So it's truly where people are kind of the most vulnerable, while also the most susceptible to, liars and manipulators and scammers and everything. So I think that we're programmed to approach love with feeling, with emotion, which is good. But when we were programmed as human beings to be that way, like Tinder didn't exist, right? So we don't want to enter the dating apps in an emotional feeling kind of space. We want to enter the dating apps in like a business-like analyst sort of mode. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure. You said why does that happen on the dating apps? I think it's because of what the goal is, which is to find love. Like and people, we're told over and oh, make yourself vulnerable, share. Yeah, not immediately, right? Like do that down the line. Like it used to be that people formed romantic relationships with people whom they already knew were safe, because their families were connected, or they had roots in their community, or they'd worked with them for 5 years, or, all these other things. The apps are this like contextless vacuum where anybody could be anything. So you can't really assume good. And you don't have to assume bad either, but you definitely shouldn't assume good.
Yeah. And you have this rule, no CPR. So if a conversation is dying, just let it die, which I love, because I feel like women are always jumping in to save that. but I know for a lot of people, I can think of like 2 women are popping up in my head that like get really into it, where they're like reading the books on how to be better at these dating apps. And it's just funny. It's refreshing hearing your side of it versus theirs, because theirs is giving them all the opposite advice. And I'm like, what are you going to end up with? You're going to end up in one of those prairie dresses with someone else's personality, with like someone who doesn't speak or only talks about their mom. I don't know. Right. But
and there's all these Instagram dating coaches telling people, like giving people a playbook for how to revive a dating app conversation that's dying. And I'm like, it's over. Like it's already over at that point. They're, like you say, they're not following that to its logical end. And it was one of, like, I can't even take credit for the perform no CPR. That was one of the Facebook group members' lines, but yeah, it's brilliant and it's memorable. And nobody should perform CPR on a dying dating app conversation.
Most dating coaches are also single. And I have mixed feelings about this because on one hand, don't ask me about dating. I've been married too long now. I have no idea what's going on out there. But on the other hand, I at least did it successfully. So like, what is the actual balance? Like, should you look for a single dating coach? Should you look for one that's fresh in a relationship?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of bad married dating coaches and a lot of bad single dating coaches, and there's some good ones on each side of that dichotomy too. So, yeah, I think you just have to kind of listen to the advice they're giving, but there's a lot of bad advice.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad advice.
There is. Right. Yeah. Like full stop. There's a lot of bad advice. Yeah.
When everyone can have a platform, you really have to bring out your discernment.
You do. You do. Yeah, for sure.
So you also argue that this goes way beyond dating. Therapists are using it with abuse survivors. Domestic violence workers are using it. So what does it mean that rhetorical pattern recognition is useful in all of these contexts?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the biggest surprise to me of Burnt Haystack. And had I thought about it at the beginning, like had someone said, could you use this set of tools with this entirely different crowd, with women who are in abusive relationships? I think I would have said yes, but that wasn't, I was very focused on gaming the dating apps. But if you really study the Burnt Haystack rules, most of them are just designed to protect women from abuse. Like that's your first goal on the dating app, is to rule out men who are going to be abusive. So it makes sense that it would translate to these other applications. And I mean, I'm thrilled if somebody uses Burnt Haystack to find the love of their life. I'm more thrilled if therapists and psychologists are successfully using it to protect women from abuse or help them get out of it and recover from it.
And I do love how you shared how the women who have found their kind of needles in the haystack, their actual partners, are almost universally using the word ruthless about how much they blocked. Like that's permission.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. It's permission and it's proof, right? Like, I mean, yeah, I saw a meme the other day that said, this is a paraphrase and I'm going to get it wrong, but it was something to the effect of the bitchiest women I know have the best husbands. And there's some truth to that.
I do have a great husband. I don't know. It's interesting, like having a self-image versus a front-facing image. Like I know my own internal bitchiness. I don't know I don't know how many other people see it. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what other people see in me compared to what I see in myself.
Yeah. And I think it's fine to hide that. Like I'm wearing a ring right now that says be kind. And then on the inside, it says of a bitch. And I feel like that's my whole life philosophy. Like I do want to be, I think kindness is important. I value it. I think we should be kind to each other. I also think there's a benefit to being a little bit of a bitch, especially for women on dating apps.
Well, and it depends on the connotation too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. There's a feminist bitch, right? Like that's the one we're talking about. Yeah.
When you say a bitch, it's like women who know what they want being called bossy. We should be putting ourselves first. We should know what we want. We don't need to put up with other people's shit longer than we feel like it. Just craft your life faster. It's really what it is. And that shouldn't even be in the same category as being a bitch. It just is because a man probably wrote the definition to the word.
I'm sure. And also and I say this over and over again, context matters all the time. Like I am much more I think people who only know me for Burned Haystack might assume that I'm like impossible to get along with on a daily basis, but nobody in my life would tell you that. There's a time and a place to make space for acceptance and patience and generosity with people that you know and love, and to navigate those relationships. On the dating apps, you should be ruthless.
Yeah. And you also talk about something called the switch flip to sort of going between modes. Tell us about that, because that seems like a really practical thing to do. It's kind of like learning writing. One really just kind of profound tip that stuck with me back in college is like, don't write and edit at the same time. Do your shitty first draft, go back later and edit. If you're sitting there doing line by line, you're using different parts of your brain. And this is kind of the dating app version of that. So teach us.
Yeah. So yeah, when you first start using a dating app, so like, I mean, even if you've been on the apps for years, when I say first, I mean your early interactions with people, you should be in the mode of like you're hiring someone, you're interviewing people for a job, a professional job. Not the job of like, being the person you sleep with. Don't think about it in those terms. You want to think about you want to be looking at people's character, at the sort of like concrete facts of their life, not like trying to gauge for some sort of amorphous chemistry thing. That is the worst way to use a dating app. So you want to start in business like sort of job search, job interviewing mode, because you're vetting people. That's what you're doing, and that should not be happening at the heart level. Like, you gotta stay in your brain, and that's what Burn Haystack, what it does is give you all these intellectual tools so that you can stay in your brain, so that you can make really smart decisions. And if you do that well, and it's hard, it's not complicated, but it's hard because of all this social messaging, right? But if you can train yourself to do it, and hundreds of thousands of women are, then at that point, after you've done that vetting, after you've been ruthless, after you've paid attention in an analytical way, then you flip the switch to heart mode. And that's when you realize the benefits. That's when you fall in love. That's when you have all the feelings. And that's like the really rewarding part of this process, but it doesn't happen immediately. And it can't happen immediately. Like, it's just not how the system works.
You need to create a dating app so you can actually toggle. No, I'm in vetting mode. I'm only seeing the people I'm still vetting. Yeah. I've moved this guy over to heart mode.
I love that idea.
Like, I'm in a mood. I'm going to heart mode. I only want to have these loving conversations.
Right. Yeah.
That would be genius. I wonder though, too, I've thought about this. My husband and I laugh because there's so many things. We've been together a long time. And he's like, man, the amount of things that I know of, because it's like I mentioned the Epstein files. He's like, no, my wife told me about all this stuff 7 years ago. None of this is new to me. She was scouring WikiLeaks, Hillary's leaked emails for the same information. So I'm a weirdo, and I go deep on a lot of things. And I think about the idea that if I was back into dating right now, I have no idea how I would find somebody. I'm like, you need to be conversed in the conspiracy theories that may be true. You need to be spiritually aware. You need to really value where your food comes from. Like, I would be the red flag on the other end of that. How do you approach that? Because I see it as, I know myself and I'm very intentional, and I look at those as a good thing. But when and where do you introduce that without wasting your time? Because I don't want somebody who doesn't have a spiritual side. I don't want somebody who takes CNN as face value. I don't. So how do you find this in that stage?
Well, I mean, you can't know at the beginning stage if you can know if you're not finding that. One of the things I say over and over again is that Burned Haystack is for ruling people out, not in. You could use Burned Haystack to rule people out very accurately and effectively all day long. You can't know after a few days or even a few weeks if the person you're interacting with is, a true needle, if they're your match, if they're a good person, if they're trustworthy. That part just takes time. I don't think there's any avoiding that. People can keep it. There's kind of like this 3-month rule that nefarious people can kind of keep it together for 3 months, and then they start showing their red flags. I think most of the time it happens way before that. But if you're talking about a true psychopath, it might be a little longer than that, but fortunately there's not, like, There are sociopaths, but they're a very small percentage of the population. They're not the majority of men you're going to run into on dating apps.
Tell that to Instagram.
I know, right? Yeah, I know.
We talked about how so many of these patterns come up in other relationships. It might even show up in friendships and workplaces and families. The kind of breadcrumbing, test and apologize or conditional decency.
Yeah.
Did writing this book change how you read other relationships in your life?
I think it made me more aware of it. And I think most people in the Burned Haystack community would tell you, the more you study these patterns, you're just going to like, as you said a little bit ago, you can't unsee it. So you're going to see it. You don't have to decide, I'm now going to, bring this to my workplace and analyze my problematic boss. You're just going to do it naturally. I don't think, as I said before, we all kind of know on a very deep level what's okay and what's not okay. This method just helps you articulate why, sometimes just to yourself, right? Like I had a community member say that she's like, I can't leave my job right now. And it's super toxic. And my boss is really abusive. But just knowing what he's doing and being able to name it just inside my own head has made it way more tolerable for me to be there while I'm looking for a new job, because I'm no longer internalizing his bad behavior. I'm calling it out, even if just mentally, because I can't structurally. But she's like, I'm going to get out and I'm going to be way healthier when I do. And I'm going to know what to avoid in the future.
Name it to tame it works in so many different contexts.
It does. Yeah, it totally does.
Well, I love leaving listeners with just one thing to either do, think about, focus on for this week to bring all this into the reality. We've given a lot of tips, but what's a good starting place if they're still on the apps and they want to feel like they're making some progress and they learned something from us today?
I think I would say start paying attention to words and language in a way you never have before in all aspects of your life. And a good question to use to do that is what we use a lot of what I call heuristics, which is just like an academic rhetorical term for like a thought tool. But one of our heuristics is why is this bothering me, or why does this make me feel bad? Or why does it sound off? Like there's a number of ways to phrase this, but so just to give you a really quick example, because it's fresh in my mind, my son and I were driving across town this morning and we saw a sign that said drug-free school zone. And we were both like, that's a weird sign. And we're on the East Coast.
We're trying to find the drug school zone. So.
Exactly. Right. So then you start breaking that down, right? And asking yourself, why does that sound weird? It sounds weird because it seems to be implying that this is the zone for the schools that don't have drugs. But no schools are supposed to have drugs. But actually, it's a question of what is drug-free modifying. It's not modifying the school. It's not saying this is a drug-free school. It's saying this is a drug-free zone because it includes a school, right? So it's a drug-free school zone. It's not a drug-free school zone. Do you see the difference there?
Yep.
But we're not necessarily trained to think about language on that granular of a level. But once you start doing it, like just as you're going through your day, your rhetorical skills will sharpen, and you'll naturally start doing it better on the dating apps and in every other instance. But it's also just really entertaining. It's a good way to sharpen your language skills. So, we're taught to kind of gloss over everything now. There's all this information coming at us all the time. We're just like fluttering around in our brain. Stop. Pause. Look at the words. Figure out how the words are interacting with each other. And that's the first step to figuring out what lies beneath the words, which is what critical discourse analysis gives you. And that's what Burnt Haystack is founded upon.
I know this is not the same thing, but I cannot help but think about elementary school when the D.A.R.E program handed out all of those too cool to do drugs pencils. And then when you sharpened it, it said cool to do drugs and then just do drugs. And we all thought they were the best.
That's great, right? That's a great example. Nobody thought through that. Yeah. And then the kids are sharpening.
Right, I was like, I don't need the first half of this pencil. I just need to sharpen it down to the cool zone.
Right. Yeah.
Well, for listeners that want to learn more and get your book, where's the best place to connect with you in your community?
So we have a large group on Facebook, Burn the Haystack Dating Method. There's a lot of fake groups out there, but if you look for the one that has like, I think there's 255,000 some women in the private group. So just look for the big one. That's the real one. I'm on Substack, Burn the Haystack. I'm at Word Case Scenario on Instagram. And then if you just Google search my name, Jennie Young, or Burn the Haystack, you'll end up at somewhere that'll lead you to the book, but you can buy it on, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Bookshop, anywhere you buy books.
Want to work through this week's Mind Love Challenge with others? The Mind Love Collective is a free community with monthly themed calls, weekly challenge accountability, and real support throughout the year. So join us at mindlove.com/join. Thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.